Whoa, we got some portal activity here as Penn State is set to lose starting quarterback Ethan Grunkemeyer, but I think we all know what's going to happen next.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I guess I shouldn't have expected to have a nice, quiet, relaxing holiday start to 2026. You are locked on to Penn State football. No, I enjoy having these conversations when Penn State brings in players, not exactly when we see these kinds of departures. As Ethan Grunkemeyer is set to hit the transfer portal, tons of Penn State players are actually set to hit the transfer portal. My name is Seyko. I'm your host of the show, as always, credentialed media member for both Penn State football and Penn State wrestling. Hey, Happy New Year to each and every one of you. Let's have a fantastic 2026 as tons of portal movement is happening for the Nittany Lions today. We're going to break it all down. Some players are staying. There's good news. Few more other players are getting ready to depart. What does this mean overall for Matt Campbell's plan? Because Grunkemeyer going into the portal can mean only one thing, and that Penn State has plans for a different starting quarterback in 2026. Matt Campbell has different plans at quarterback for 2026. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. This is a live show, so we will get to the live chat later on. But I got an agenda to get through as we got to react to some of these portal moves here, beginning first and foremost with losing a starting quarterback. And what this means is that Penn State and Matt Campbell are going to move forward with Rocco Becht. And I know what people are immediately going to say because I've had this conversation now how many times, but let's have it again now because we've actually seen the dominoes and the chips fall where they may. I am not shocked by this in the slightest. And this is simply a hunch. This is not inside information, but I imagine that Matt Campbell went to Ethan Grunkemeyer to get him to stay. What he couldn't promise him was the starting job for 2026. Because you want Ethan Grunkemeyer, you absolutely do. However, the guy who's been your quarterback for the past 2 seasons, if I'm not mistaken, 3 seasons, Rocco Becht is going into his 5th and final year. That's your QB. That's your guy. He knows Taylor Mauser's offense. He knows quarterback coach Jake Waters, who are now all over at Penn State. The writing was on the wall here. So if you were surprised that Grunkemeyer is in the portal, don't be. For better or for worse, don't be. And don't be shocked if and when Rocco Becht comes over to Happy Valley, the Iowa State starting quarterback. Now, this plan is really contingent on one other element here, because it's not about Rocco Becht versus Ethan Grunkemeyer. If it was, I'm all the way for Ethan Grunkemeyer because he's got 3 more years of eligibility. Rocco Becht only has 1. Grunkemeyer, I would say, is comparable, if not better, than Rocco Becht to this point. They're the same caliber. So that's, you know what you're getting with Rocco Becht here. So people that are excited and said, I want Ethan Grunkemeyer as Penn State starting quarterback. Well, Becht being just as good as Grunkemeyer is at least a good start, okay? But I have some reasons why, Becht might not have lived up to the necessary expectations. I think he can be better in year 5 at Penn State than what he's shown in the past few seasons at Iowa State, because now he's going to have a better supporting cast around him. Iowa State players plus Penn State players. Okay, but let me circle back to why this move only works if Penn State gets QB number 2. And that's the conversation that I imagine Matt Campbell had with Grunk, saying, we want you here. We want you to be our quarterback for the future, but we can't have you start over Rocco Becht in 2026. Okay, if you're Ethan Grunkemeyer, you're going to take a back seat after you proved in 7 games that you can be a starter in the Big Ten. You are a starting quarterback in the Big Ten, which is now definitively the best conference in college football. There is no more, the SEC and the depth of the... No. Grunk proved that he can start at QB in the best conference in college football. So you're going to go back to the bench after putting together a resume that is extremely respectable, you can go start at dozens of other places. If it's Virginia Tech, maybe so be it. His head coach is there. His quarterback's coach is there. Kind of like the same setup here with Becht. But Matt Campbell doesn't make this move lightly. He's not doing this because he has a disposition, favoritism for Rocco Becht. While that is his guy, he needs to be able to build out the QB room overall. The hurdle with Grunkemeyer is that year after year after year, if you're going to commit to Grunk being your starting QB for the next 3 seasons, good luck finding a quarterback that's not going to use Penn State as a stepping stone. It is more difficult to recruit a bona fide QB2 than a starting quarterback, because you can't even have a battle. Well, if I'm going to be the backup to this guy for the next 3 years, why would I go to Penn State? You have to build out a depth chart. As talented as Grunkemeyer is, it's a win-win situation either way for Penn State, because you can win with Grunkemeyer. You can also win with Becht and going and getting QB2. That QB2 is going to be Alex Manske. According to On3, Rocco Becht and Alex Manske are 2 of the top 10 quarterbacks in the transfer portal rankings the last time that I checked. Maybe that's changed with some other names going in and out of the portal, but these guys are currently both top 10, and Grunkemeyer now is probably going to shake up those rankings a little bit. So Penn State is losing Grunkemeyer, who is a talented quarterback. I don't think he's reached his peak. I think he's only going to get better. It is devastating. This doesn't sit well. It shouldn't with Penn State fans. But know that there is a larger plan here. It's to bring in Rocco Becht. It's to hopefully get Alex Manske, because then that's where the baton's going to go. You'll get Rocco Becht for 1 season, and he is a good quarterback. You put the weapons around him. You give him a better offensive line, which Penn State will, by retaining Cooper Cousins and Anthony Donko and Owen Alasini. Oh, look, Garrett Sexton is going to stay. And then you're going to add other players from Iowa State, presumably in a 3-year starter in Brendan Black, for example. So Beck's going to get a better supporting cast overall. He's going to have a better offensive line to block for him, better tight ends to throw to, with Andrew Rapplier staying and presumably adding star tight end from Iowa State, Ben Bramer. And then that's where, okay, now this is where Penn State separates itself from Iowa State and why Matt Campbell takes this job. Because now you go and get the wide receivers to put around Rocco Becht. You'll get the running backs too, okay? That's what Penn State's plan is here. So the cost of it is losing somebody with a ton of upside. He's a fan favorite, Rocco Becht. And I know how Penn State fans operate. This is different. It's weird. It's unusual because Penn State doesn't go through the transfer portal. It is going to be strange. You're not going to be able to feel as connected with a player like this. I'm speaking on behalf of the fan here, generally. Some people are going to say, no, I understand the plan here. I understand the blueprint, but there's still the sentimental aspect of college football. This isn't going to sit right with some people because Grunk was supposed to stay for 4 or 5 years. And that's how you build a fandom around these players, because they stay committed to your favorite university. They play at your favorite school. They're a Penn Stater just like you. And to see Grunk leave because this is the way the sport is now, and Rocco Becht come in for 1 year, play in hopefully more than a dozen games, right? The idea I'm alluding to a playoff, right? But bottom line is that Becht isn't going to have that same kind of perception because he's going to be one and done. And this is unfortunately where college football is, where you don't have that same kind of feel-good story with football players in this instance. Rocco Becht is going to be presumably the starter. This plan really only works is if you get Alex Manske to come along. That's the hope. That's the plan. Because again, I don't think Matt Campbell makes this move lightly and just says, we're going to let Ethan Grunkemeyer walk. He's gone. We're just going to let him go for Rocco Becht for 1 season. No, it is better for Penn State long-term to get Rocco Becht for 1 year, and then Alex Manske, who was the backup QB at Iowa State, for the foreseeable future. He basically takes the place of Ethan Grunkemeyer, and then he's the 3-year starter, in theory, for Penn State. So he's the long-term. Oregon did this with Dylan Gabriel and then got Dante Moore. And oh, look at that. They won a playoff game today. Look at that transition and how that worked. That's what Matt Campbell is going for. He's trying to get the 1-year placeholder with the veteran, pass the baton over to someone like, it could have been Ethan Grunkemeyer. I don't think he was willing to do that. Alex Manske, next up. He will be that guy. But they have to get him. That's the only way this, and I presume, I am confident that that will be the case because, again, if you're Matt Campbell, you don't just let Ethan Grunkemeyer walk without a plan. Oh, that wasn't the only player to announce that they were leaving or that they were staying. So Penn State did also get some good news of more players to stick around in Happy Valley, and some good ones too. We'll talk about all of these portal moves here on the live show, and also get to the live chat too, coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And the show is brought to you by FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night before the games tip off, FanDuel gives fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame. A limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action actually starts. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 Eastern have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour always brings something new, whether that's a boost, a bonus, any surprises. It's easy to check the weekly special before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. The timing is perfect. It's right before the games, right before the weekend starts. It adds extra energy to Friday night basketball without overthinking it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Again, Happy New Year to all of you. Happy 2026. Thank you for spending your New Year's Day with me here on a live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions, because I was just trying to enjoy a peaceful, relaxing holiday, just kind of start with a quiet day here to open 2026. And no, we got a bunch of portal moves, but hey, I love that I have this job, right? That I get to do this, that I get to talk about this. So I kid, I really do. But on the holiday, man, it, for better or for worse, you have all this portal activity here. And as I sit here, because I have social media open to make sure, am I missing any big portal moves? Am I missing any departures? Am I missing any retention? Are players staying? Well, as we sit here in real time, it looks like Max Granville, this is breaking news in real time here, that Max Granville, Penn State defensive end, who is from the state of Texas and has little to no connection to Matt Campbell's staff. There is no defensive line coach in place right now. And Max Granville is going to be your starting defensive end, the face of your defensive line with all the moves that have happened to this point. He's staying. That's a plus. So where you lose Ethan Grunkemeyer, it hurts. It kind of adds to this long list because it is an exodus. How you want to define that? Well, it's not an exodus because there are guys staying around. Hey, it's the quantity of players. It's a long list. Okay. So there is a natural exodus because James Franklin got a lot of these players to commit to him. There are a lot of people that like James Franklin, and they're not Matt Campbell guys. What is more impressive is the fact that Matt Campbell, again, is getting Max Granville to stay, Andrew Rapplier, Cooper Cousins, Anthony Donko. You're getting guys that you have to basically recruit in a week, 2 weeks time before the portal opens up, because Penn State did not hire. James Franklin's been working behind the scenes to try to start to build a roster because he was hired by Virginia Tech a long time ago. And Matt Campbell, he's been on the job for what, 2-3 weeks? And he's got to make all of these moves before the portal opens here. That's what I've been impressed about. So let's go through all of the latest portal moves and who we need to watch for moving forward. Okay. So there are now over 20 players in the portal that are departing from Penn State. And it's not a guarantee, but it's safe to say, expect these guys to leave. Don't expect them to stay. But we all saw guys like Chaz Coleman. I'm just going to read the list. I have the list pulled up in front of me. We're going to go. This is in alphabetical order. AJ Harris, cornerback, who started for the past 2 seasons. Aaron Ennerline, backup wide receiver. Alex Birchmeyer, backup offensive lineman. Anthony Ivy, backup wide receiver. Anthony Specka, backup linebacker. Beckham Kritza, backup quarterback. Braswell Thomas, backup safety. Chaz Coleman probably would have been a starting defensive end. Daniel Jennings, liked him a lot, but a backup as a true freshman. Elliott Washington, backup cornerback. Ethan Grunkemeyer, starting quarterback, maybe would have been QB2. Javen Williams, remember, 5-star offensive lineman, backup, but probably would have contended for a starting spot. Jalen Harvey could have been a starter at defensive end with what we've seen turnover at defensive line here. Jeff Exner, true freshman, backup wide receiver. Joey Schlaffer, backup tight end. Caden Saunders, backup wide receiver. Kari Jackson, backup linebacker. Keon Wiley, backup linebacker. Sam Siafa, backup defensive tackle. TJ Shanahan probably would have been a starter on the offensive line in 2026. He's in the portal. Xavier Gilliam would have been a starter at defensive tackle. He's in the portal. Zariah Fisher, could have been a starting defensive end next season for Penn State because he was the starter this season. He is also in the portal. All right. How about the names that are staying? Because there were some announcements today on New Year's Day. So it's not all bad. It's not all terrible news. You have Max Granville, who just announced a few minutes ago on social media saying that he's staying. I'm impressed with that move. It was more than a hunch of anything else. It's just, hey, Max Granville committed to Deion Barnes. He's at South Carolina. James Franklin's at Virginia Tech. And Granville was from Texas, and that was a tough recruitment against Oklahoma. He's probably going to go back closer to home. He'll probably transfer to Oklahoma, right? Because they went right down to the wire with his recruitment. No, he's staying. I'm impressed with that one. Dejon Lane. Dejon Lane is from the state of Maryland. Okay. You have Terry Smith stays as he's going to be the associate head coach. He was, the guy who coached the cornerbacks for the longest time. So he's still going to have influence in the secondary, but your safeties coach and Anthony Poindexter is out. Deion Broomfield, who's now the official secondary coach. That's impressive to get a guy like Dejon Lane to stay, who has a lot of upside, who can be a starter in this Danton Lynn defense. And it goes along with Cooper Cousins, Anthony Donko, Andrew Rapplier on offense, Garrett Sexton as well, Owen Alasini. Let me not forget this one too, Alex Tatch. Alex Tatch is the guy who can reestablish. I don't think Penn State's gone away from linebacker U. However, these past few seasons have been a little rough at the linebacker spot. I think we can all agree because there was so much turnover. It was Manny Diaz one year. Then it was Tom Allen another year. And then Dan Connor finally gets settled in. And, oh, look, your head coach is fired. Alex Tatch can reaffirm, if you will, that Penn State is LBU, that they are linebacker U. You still want to focus on trying to retain Tony Rojas and Amari Campbell, because I don't necessarily believe that Tatch is a day one starter in 2026. I think he's a guy that you put in your 2 deep. He's who I want as linebacker 3 or 4, but I still want Tony Rojas and Amari Campbell to be back at Penn State. So now we're kind of all caught up here on the portal moves, and I imagine that more are going to happen. Again, I have social media pulled up just to kind of make sure here that I'm not missing anything. I hope that I'm not missing anything as far as breaking news goes, but that's why I went live, because Grunkemeyer, that is a big deal. Losing your starting quarterback for the foreseeable future to do something to make a move that not every Penn State fan's going to agree with. Not all Penn State fans are going to like Rocco Becht coming in for a year when the results at Iowa State were average. You look at the stats, they don't look that great. You have to actually watch the games themselves. There are moments where Rocco Becht does look like more than just a solid college quarterback, more than just a game manager, a savvy veteran. We could all say the same things about Ethan Grunkemeyer, because most Penn State fans watch Grunkemeyer play every single snap. There are people that follow Iowa State that are sitting back and saying, no, there's a lot of upside still with Rocco Becht. Most people don't know this, but Becht played with 2 injured shoulders last season. That Iowa State, they were 8-4. That wasn't that good of a team. they dealt with a ton of injuries and had limited depth. The reason why I think Matt Campbell can succeed at another level at Penn State, because he can finally build out a roster. He can finally have a comprehensive depth chart to where you're not just relying on the first string of players. That is the ideal setup for two reasons. One, you don't have players playing an excess amount of snaps. Guys that are playing 60, 70, 80, that's pretty much the ballpark is 60 to 70 snaps. That's the ballpark for every game. The amount of wear and tear that goes into a player, that doesn't matter if it's quarterback, running back, it's particularly at those other skill positions. Quarterback is one thing. Running back, offensive line, any position, just name one, just pick one. Having the depth allows you to prevent that wear and tear, but it also doesn't force you to play guys who don't necessarily deserve 70 snaps a game. There are guys on the Iowa State team that are going to come over to Penn State that I think are really talented, are Big Ten caliber players, but I don't know that I want them playing 65 to 70 snaps every game. I want those guys playing a good portion of the snaps, a majority of the snaps, but it actually benefits if you have them play around 30 to 40 and you have a rotation at that position. So it prevents the wear and tear. It allows you to focus on longevity when this sport continues to extend. We have more games. You have the college football playoff. You have to find a way to build out your depth chart or you're not going to make it far in the sport on a year-to-year basis. So that's why Penn State should want to, as much as possible, get as many Iowa State players in, not only because they're talented, but because they provide veteran depth. Matt Campbell knows what he's doing. Again, these moves don't happen lightly, but there's still players that you want to retain at Penn State, no matter what. Those guys, I think, as the names continue to make their decisions, right? You have Max Granville coming and returning. You have guys like Dejon Lane announce, multiple offensive linemen, Andrew Rapplier. So now the focus turns towards Tony Rojas, Amari Campbell, I would say King Mack. I would also try to see if you can get Xavier Gilliam back, Ivan Kamaju, defensive end, second-year player. Those are the guys that you want to really focus on. Did I mention Kobe Howard? I'm blanking here in the moment, but Kobe Howard on offense can be arguably your number one or number two wide receiver, depending on who else you get in the portal. Penn State's going to have a lot of turnover here. It's going to be different. It's going to be new. It's going to be taboo to an extent because James Franklin never really utilized the portal. We haven't seen Penn State have a coaching change like this in quite some time in an era where player movement is everything in this sport. So it's not only the Penn State players and the Iowa State players, but they're going to have to go get some guys that have no connections to either university to join the Nittany Lions if they want a competitive team in 2026, which they will do. They will do. It's not just going to be only Penn State players. It's not just going to be only Iowa State players. It's also going to be key select players that you can get from those other schools. So the transfer portal, and this is the only window. So if you think, oh, well, it's not going to be that big. It's not going to be that much, that interesting. No, don't forget, there's no spring transfer portal window. This is the only time to make a move. But at least when it's done and over with, it's done and over with. The guys are here. They're going to go through spring football, and they're at Penn State for the entire season. So I want to get to all of you in the live chat. It's a holiday. Let's celebrate together. I'll talk to all of you in the live chat coming up next here on this live edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. This episode is brought to you by GameTime. GameTime is the place to go for college football tickets. And we all love college football season, the tailgates, the packed stadiums, being right in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments you remember forever. But actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, and prices jumping at checkout. That's why GameTime gives the advantage back to you, the fan. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. You can open up the GameTime app, look at upcoming college football games, choose your favorite team, and you'll be surprised at how fast it is to find great seats. The app is incredibly easy to use. You can go from browsing to buying tickets in just minutes. And one of the best features, you will be able to see your point of view ahead of time. If you've never been to a stadium, you've never been to a venue, you get to see the view from your selected seat before buying. You'll know exactly what you're getting. And knowing prices include all the fees up front make the whole process stress-free. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. All right, one final segment here, and that's going to be devoted to the live chat. I see almost 100 comments, so I'm going to try to get to them as many as possible here. I think we should start from the present. I usually start from the top and the past conversation. So I'm going to try to jump in from the new part of the comments, and then we'll work our way backwards, actually. So I see people say, trust the Campbell process. And we need to get the quarterback in place soon. Absolutely. You want to establish, and I think there's going to be a lot of player movement early in the portal for Penn State because a lot of Iowa State guys are coming over. You're going to have Rocco Becht announced fairly quickly. I can't, and that's a presumption. That's stuff that I've heard. That's stuff that we're all reading, right? We're all reading similar information that all the signs are pointing towards Rocco Becht. But I'm curious about Alex Manske. This move, losing Ethan Grunkemeyer, is not made lightly. You have to go get your quarterback of the future. And again, in theory, you could have made Ethan Grunkemeyer starting quarterback, but I say good luck to getting a QB2 year after year after year, because eventually, and Alex Manske coming in gives you that depth. Then you don't have to start a true freshman, because if Rocco Becht were to get hurt, if he were, or Ethan Grunkemeyer, say you don't have a true backup, because I don't imagine that Jackson Smolik stays. Maybe he does. I would be shocked by that, because he probably believes that he can be a starter somewhere else. Do you see what I mean? As much as you would like for Grunkemeyer to stay around, it's not realistic to go out and recruit and say, do you want to be the backup here? Do you want to be the QB2 and no upward mobility at Penn State? That is a difficult sell. That is not easy to do. So you can see why Penn State is going in this direction. See, we're all caught up here. Granville is back. Granville announced that he's back. Granville announced that he's back. So yes, Max Granville's coming back. So I'm really intrigued to see how quickly these moves do happen. I'm anticipating that they will. I'm expecting that the Iowa State players, for the most part, have their mind made up. It is not an accident that 40-plus players from Iowa State entered the portal. Okay? That doesn't happen by accident. And Penn State's not going to land every single one of them. Don't think that, oh, Penn State's just going to copy and paste the roster over from Iowa State. My expectation is, though, at least 15, at least 20 players, whether it's for depth purposes or actual starting caliber players. And if we want to go over some of those Iowa State players briefly, because there are a lot of question marks at running back. Go figure, the position groups that don't exactly have a designated position coach yet, because not everything's set in stone. Running back. What is Penn State doing at running back? Quentin Martin, Corey Smith, Tyke Hayes. Those are guys that you can build around if you're Matt Campbell. But who's your running backs coach? The running backs would probably like to know that. But I do find it intriguing. Again, got to open up social media just in case, because anything can happen at any point in time. But you can build around a player like Quentin Martin. we saw him put up 100 yards against, I mean, that's still a quality Clemson defense. And Tom Allen's the defensive coordinator. So I know some of you are going to say, what do you mean quality defensive Clemson defense? What are you talking about? No, that's Quentin Martin for his first co-start, because Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton took up all of the playing time. Martin was almost a 5-star at one point, was a high-end 4-star top 100 player. That's somebody you want to keep around. But you also complement him with a bruising running back like Carson Hansen from Iowa State. And this is what I mean. Someone like Carson Hansen maybe was playing a little too many snaps at Iowa State. That's my opinion. I'm sure that people who follow Iowa State and Carson Hansen himself are probably like, what do you mean I was playing too many snaps? He had 13 touchdowns his sophomore season. The guy is really good, but it's about the wear and tear and then the complementary nature of it. You can have a solid 1-2 punch in my mind between Quentin Martin as that explosive player, and then Carson Hansen's going to run right up the middle at you at 6'2", 220 plus pounds. Okay, good luck stopping that behind the offensive line of Cooper Cousins, Anthony Donko, Owen Alasini. Brendan Black is somebody from Iowa State that I would like to see come over because he's a plug-and-play player. He is an avid run blocker. Pass protection, solid, but he's definitely a better run blocker. But plug-and-play at guard, especially with losing TJ Shanahan. That is somebody I would like to have seen stick around, but it makes a ton of sense. If you know the background on TJ Shanahan, he's from the state of Florida originally. The reason he committed to Penn State was because Phil Trautwein recruited him, and now Phil Trautwein's at Florida, his alma mater, go figure. Phil Trautwein's at Florida. TJ Shanahan's from the state of Florida. Makes a ton of sense, right? Iowa State doesn't solve all of Penn State's problems, though. You'll get depth at key positions. You'll get help a lot on the offensive side of the football. Ben Bramer at tight end, again, if these moves go through, I'm anticipating that part of that's a prediction. That is not me relaying inside information saying, oh, I know all the players that are going to say yes, but it's about the connection to Matt Campbell, the needs that Penn State has, and the fit that makes sense for the player itself. There is a need presently at running back. Carson Hansen makes sense. There is a need with Luke Reynolds in the portal now with Ben Bramer, and they're going to run a lot of 12 personnel. That's two tight end sets for anybody that's not a football junkie here. You are going to need another star caliber tight end. Ben Bramer, who knows this offense very well and was a starter at Iowa State, comes over, instant starter at Penn State. Brendan Black, that I've mentioned, TJ Shanahan, you anticipate him to move on. You can make Brendan Black a starter at offensive guard, okay? But Iowa State does not solve all your problems. So you get help at running back, potentially wide receiver with names like Chase Sowell and Brett Eskelson. Those are guys that you want to join Kobe Howard and probably still get maybe another wide receiver or two out of the portal. And I'm talking about guys that are serious contributors, not just guys that you put on the practice squad, players that can be potentially, you need a number one wide receiver. I don't like that Penn State. Now, I think Kobe Howard has the upside to do that, but is he going to be ready for that in year 2 if he sticks around? I would like to hope that he does, but if he doesn't, okay, I don't trust Brett Eskelson and Chase Sowell to necessarily be that, for example, but secondary and third options, great, because that's what they've proven that they can be to this point. At defensive line, Iowa State ran the 3-3-5 for a reason. They did not have a lot of defensive linemen. So Penn State, with all the natural attrition, denied Dennis Sutton going to the NFL, Zane Durant going to the NFL, Zariah Fisher, I thought was out of eligibility, but he's in the portal. Okay. Alonzo Ford, I think he's out of eligibility too. He's going to the NFL. You're losing your entire starting off defensive line. Okay. Well, Iowa State, plug and play. Not as direct of a case here. There is maybe one player, Ikenna Eziogu. He is a defensive end, strong side defensive end, 6'4", 6'5", 280 pounds. That is a guy that can be a starter, but at a minimum, be a co-starter or someone on your 2 deep depth chart. That's what you're looking for from Iowa State. But that's only one player. That doesn't solve all your issues at defensive line. linebacker, Tony Rojas and Amari Campbell. If you miss out on them, you are really scrambling in the portal to find linebackers. Secondary is the safest bet on defense. I'll say that again. Secondary, because of who you've retained so far with Dejon Lane. You'd like to get King Mack back. You would like to get Darius Dixon, Jameer Joseph. But if you don't, Iowa State has two of the best players overall in the portal in Jeremiah Cooper and Jontez Williams. Those guys are all conference caliber players that got hurt last season and missed the entire season for Iowa State. Part of the reason why they were 8-4, because they didn't have the depth necessarily behind them. They ran a 3-3-5. Those are two players. 40% of their starting secondary went down in the same week. Marcus Neal is another player that Penn State should try to target, but you don't necessarily have to if you retain Dixon, Mack, Joseph. You still need depth, though, at the end of the day. So we're going to be talking about it a ton over the next, the portal is going to give. It's also going to take away. I wanted to jump back in the live chat. I started to go off on a tangent here. What about Bo Pribula? Probably not. I imagine Virginia Tech insiders seem fairly confident that Bo Pribula is going to land at VT. So it's not even a one-way ticket for Ethan Grunkemeyer to end up at Virginia Tech, which would make sense, but probably not going to happen. Grunk will start somewhere. Bo Pribula will start somewhere. If I had to make a prediction today, just based on what I've seen in terms of reports, Bo Pribula to Virginia Tech because of James Franklin. But I imagine he's going to reconsider with Ethan Grunkemeyer now officially in the portal. This I don't expect. If Matt Campbell pulls this off and you get Jackson Smolik to stay, my preference would still be to target Alex Manske, because I don't know that Smolik is the starter of the future. And you're also back in the portal a year later because Smolik will be out of eligibility. So you would have 1 year of Becht, 1 year of Smolik. And then if Peyton Falzone develops or Casey Evans develops, okay, but that's still a big if. So I prefer the plan of go with Becht, go with Alex Manske for 3 years. That's the idea here. So I think that's where we're going to have to wrap things up, because I've gone over and I see some other people were on the same page with some of the names, like Jeremiah Cooper's in here and people suggesting some other Iowa State players to target. So we're going to have plenty of conversations around it as the portal opens up tomorrow. Little disclaimer, because before any of this happened and with the holiday, trying to work around other people's schedules, I did an episode with Brian Smith, recruiting expert here on the portal expert with the Locked On Podcast Network. We actually recorded a portal overview, a portal preview with our predictions, our expectations, how Penn State can win the portal before anybody made any announcements today. So we are still going to release that episode because it is still timely. You don't have the analysis of Ethan Grunkemeyer, but it's also kind of shaded with the fact that we did anticipate, we flat out said it in the podcast, for example, that our prediction was that Rocco Becht would be the quarterback next season for Penn State and that Grunk would go into the portal because we didn't expect him to stay and be QB2. So the official announcement didn't happen until after we hit end record, but the conversation is still in depth. Brian's great as always. I give you the Penn State perspective. So I hope you will tune into that tomorrow for the Friday episode. Just wanted to let everybody know that is where I will wrap up this live show. Appreciate each and every one of you. Again, Happy New Year. Here's to a blessed, awesome 2026. Thank you so much for all the support in 2025 on this show and the continued support here in 2026. It means a ton to me. It means the world to me. This show isn't what it is without all of you. So here is to a fantastic, a phenomenal 2026 and all conversations around the portal, Penn State football, Penn State wrestling, all your favorite Penn State sports teams right here on Locked On Nittany Lions.